Doug, first of all, thank you very much for joining us.
You're welcome.
Let's start with the number one issue, which is job creation. What most people say is their primary issue. What is your position, the position of the NDP in terms of job creation in this province, and particularly here in the Miramichi area?
Jobs are the biggest challenge. Myself, I live in Fredericton, but I've been spending the last year looking for a job over here with the idea to come back. And one thing the new NDP will be doing is creating the new job tax credit. And it has proven to work to create jobs. Within 4 years, we expect that there will be 15 to 20,000 jobs created. And it's been proven to work because in 6 of the 10 US states that have the lowest unemployment, they kickstarted their economy with a new job tax credit. Yeah. Okay.
No.
And the other thing the NDP is planning is to eliminate the small business tax. Because if we can put the money back into the pockets of the business owners, they will put it back into the pockets of their workers. They will expand their businesses and create the opportunities. They are the job creators.
Doug McCarty was in Miramichi last week. He talked about ending what he called corporate welfare,
Yes.
which was subsidizing the private companies through government funding. I guess your take on the party's stance on that. Obviously, we had to deal with this in this area with ACCON, so
Yes.
I'm sort of wondering, I guess, your take.
It's amazing that from 2005 to 2011, the New Brunswick government gave $150 million to corporate entities that are no longer in existence. That's an amazing statistic, and I personally felt the effects of a corporate welfare recipient who was brought into the province, given money by successive governments, both liberal and conservative, and then ultimately, after the money was gone, to their credit, they stayed a few extra years, but ultimately they ended up closed shop and moved back to the U.S. And so it ends up, it's short-term gain, and ends up we're bribing companies to come in from outside without giving our small businesses the opportunities to be able to build and expand and create the jobs that New Brunswickers need.
The PCs obviously say one of the ways to create jobs is through shale gas. That's been the major, sort of one of the major issues in this election campaign. The PCs have kind of turned almost into a referendum. Your feelings on that subject?
Shale gas, the two sides have been polarized, where pro-shale gas people and the anti-shale gas people have just got to the emotional tizzy, and the average person has a hard time sifting through the information. The NDP's stance is to create an environmental protection agency modeled similar to what the U.S. has, and to be able to ask the question, is it safe? And if that question can be answered honestly and independently that it is safe, we would move forward. Second question is it profitable?
Yeah.
And it's not it's not about the profit for the corporations, it's about the profit for the people of New Brunswick. So the cost of the review would be borne by industry, and we would need a royalty rate that brings money to the province so that it can be invested back into the programs that need it, health and education.
You mentioned a couple of other topics there, one of them being education. We've heard the other Liberals earlier this week released their platform on education. The PCs have done so as well. Where do you stand, where does the NDP stand with education and how we move forward with education in New Brunswick?
we're, we're committed to creating an early childhood education plan with universally accessible, so preschool, creating the programs for the transition to kindergarten, reestablishing the programs that the Conservatives have cut. That was the transition between kindergarten and grade 1, and basically creating the opportunities for our children. Like the commitment is to make sure we have the frontline workers, teachers aides, anybody that's needed to be able to provide the education that our children need.
The riding that you're looking to represent is a very rural area.
It is a very
it's an aging area as well. Healthcare is a big issue, especially with senior care. What do you see as the challenges, particularly in your riding, with providing healthcare in general and also care for the elderly as we get older?
The challenge is the fact that it is rural. We live in a car-dependent culture, and just being able to get around as one ages is a difficult thing at best, and so it's good with Mount St. Joseph being renovated. I hear talk that there's the other nursing home is being scheduled to have renovations, more money added in. The new project in Niguac, and then also the one in Boys Town, Upper Miramichi. So there are facilities that can be expanded upon, and one thing that I really see is creating a transportation network. And so it's connecting churches, community centers, the different organizations within our rural communities, so that seniors, the poor, can contact somebody. I need to drive to the doctor's appointment, and just being able to connect the people that have vehicles, have transportation.
You obviously also have sort of one end of the riding is Anglophone. It's a lot of traditionally forestry work, that kind of thing. The other end of your riding is Francophone. Lobster fishery is important. How do you balance out those two, serving those two constituencies if you get elected?
I'll admit right off the bat that my French is not where it should be, but I believe that's something that's pretty standard among the Anglophone community. Like I grew up in Sunny Corner. I took a program, it was called the core program, where I studied an extra subject in French. I graduated high school, moved to Ontario, and proceeded not to use my French. So language acquisition requires you to use it, otherwise it becomes lost. And I've been trying hard to reestablish that, building the confidence, so that right now I feel more confident reading, and trying to get myself back into the writing of it, and which has been giving me that base to get back into the speaking of it. And it's about being intentional. If elected as the member for Southwest Miramichi-Bay du Vin, I will be going from one end of the riding to the other, with the deliberate intention of, one, improving my French so that I can communicate with everyone in the riding, but two, to be able to listen to the people. And I think a lot of our solutions come from the people that are actually living the situation.
I mentioned the two major industries. Let's deal with the first one, forestry. We've just seen the government come out with a new forestry plan a few months back. Doketown's getting a new mill, of course, which would be in your riding. your thoughts, your feelings on what's in that forestry plan and whether or not it benefits the people of the Miramichi.
One thing with the forestry plan is that it lowered the limit of protected lands. Like, and if we cut our forests too much without protecting and replanting, at some point we're going to hit a tipping point where our forestry is simply going to collapse, kind of like the fishery did with the cod fisher. It's going to get to the point where our forestry becomes inviable. So if we keep cutting our protected lands, forestry has been part of the Miramichi since the beginning of European settlement. And so let's figure out ways that we can maintain this, figure out ways that we can add value to our forestry products, create new markets for our forestry products. I'd love to see something be built in our old paper mill, which there is talk of the pellet plant, and it's finding the opportunities, but also making sure that it is environmentally sustainable.
On the other end of your riding is the lobster fishery, which has been in bad shape the last couple of years ago. Very low catch prices, a lot of concerns. 2 seasons ago, there was a lot of protests. What do you see there? What are you hearing from people in terms of what's going on with the lobster fishery? What do you think needs to be done to help that out?
I'll be very honest. I'm not as familiar with the lobster fishery as I should be, but a lot of that is the fact that I live in Fredericton. I'm on the opposite end of the riding, and once elected, I know there's a steep learning curve, but I am committed to that, and I will be spending time with the lobster fishermen to understand their particular issues, so that I can effectively advocate for them in Fredericton.
Okay, this week the NDP released their poverty reduction platform. Can you speak a little bit to that and how you see that benefiting your riding if you were elected?
Honestly, I haven't read the fine details on it, but in terms of the poverty reduction plan, I know it will build on the work that's already been done, and anything we can do to create the opportunities, like with getting the power back to our municipalities, putting economic development into the municipalities' hands, that will help poverty reduction. So building our communities, keeping the money in our communities, without the money going off to the larger corporate interest, that will definitely reduce poverty.
I think that's it for me. I guess the last word is yours. You get a chance to speak to the people in the riding and tell them why they should cast their vote for you.
I've been an NDP member for 10 years. I've run 3 times because I believe in the democracy. Our provincial politics has flip-flopped back and forth. So we changed from the Liberals to the Conservatives, red and blue, back and forth, 150 years. We haven't. We're in a worse state now than we were 10 years ago, and the NDP has changed. 10 years ago, you probably could have called us tax and spend, but we've balanced our books, removed our debt, and that has been done in the last 3 years. So look at our platform, look at the ideas that we are presenting. We expect to balance we expect our a balanced budget by 2018, so within 4 years, where the Conservatives promised that last time, but 4 years later, they're now saying, yeah, give us another 4 years.
Great, thank you very much.
Thank you.